The haters said that Iowa State's offense would lose their potency with Milan Momcilovic injured and Curtis Jones starting instead of coming off the bench. Turns out, the haters were wrong. Iowa State's offense soared to their highest point total in a Big 12 game with strong performances all around the team, highlighted by 30 points coming from Joshua Jefferson. Added back to the fold was Demarion Watson, who has lacked playing time over the course of the season, but contributed double digits on the scoreboard himself against the Knights on Tuesday. This team has more depth than they were getting credit for, and thanks to the chaos around the country, there was not a significant penalty in the rankings for the Cyclones after the loss to West Virginia. They currently stand at number 3 and are proving themselves to be among the most balanced teams in the country. Even when the boys shot single-digit percentage from 3 against West Virginia, they still kept it a game right up until the end. This team can compete in defensive slugfests, and they can go shot for shot against anybody. Winning multiple ways is a characteristic of great teams, and no Otzelberger team has been able to do it like this team can. Today is Friday, January 24th. I'm Matt Menson, and welcome to the Cornfield Sports Pod. No Blake today. To be honest, I'm not quite sure where he went. But on the mic with me, we got Chase Riker. How's it going?
Hello.
Alrighty.
How are you doing?
Doing well, doing well. Real excited after that 108 to 83 win against UCF. Can't
Absolutely.
complain
I don't know if
about
we've ever
that.
had a better offensive performance.
It was absolutely amazing. It was the best offensive performance that Iowa State has ever had in a Big 12 game. And even when teams are playing absolutely pitiful defense, scoring 108 points is a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, the NBA too. Like, so to do it in a
It really is
league
an
like the
NBA
Big
score.
12 is on.
108 points is an
It's,
NBA
I mean,
score.
it's right.
Um, but even in non-con against teams that are less than mediocre, you know, the most points that we've put up outside of that 108 point game, we put up 100 points against Jackson State. Um, and you know, you put up 100 points against a team here or there, maybe once or twice a year. Don't forget, we also put up 99 points against Colorado in Maui. This team can light it
Mm,
up. And even without Milan Momcilovic, we can still light it up. Um, 108 points is a lot to score against anybody. Again, we played Mississippi Valley State to start the year. They are the worst team in basketball, and we still didn't put up that many points against
mhm.
them. UCF played nothing resembling defense. So, um, you know, my
Yeah, it
thought
was
was, go ahead.
with Milan out. You with the shooting, a lot of people thought we were going to lose shooting, and Curtis Jones was right there, lit it up for us like he always does. It turns out he need. I was in the realm of, well, he shouldn't be starting because he's just a better six man. Turns out he should have been starting this entire time. He's even better as a starter, which I didn't even know there was an area for that for Curtis. And then for the post presence with Milan, Joshua Jefferson, I mean that's all I need for Jefferson.
Turns out when Curtis Jones gets more minutes, he scores more points. Who would have thought?
Yeah,
It's not like that's simple math or anything, you know. Little bit of time played, points
right.
scored correlation type of thing there. Um, so yeah, Cujo absolutely stepped up to fill that starting role where it was pretty sorely needed. I mean, Milan's a consistent scorer, but he wasn't a high numbers type of scorer. He was going to put up about 11, 12 points a game for you. I think he was averaging somewhere in the neighborhood of 12.
Mhm.
And he had a couple higher scoring games during the season against lesser great opponents. Um, but that's typically about what he was consistent for. Um, he's not the big time scorer that Curtis Jones has been basically since the Big 12 tournament last year.
Mhm.
Um, and Cujo's been doing that off the bench. Now he's doing that as a starter, and with more minutes in his hands, he's scoring even more points.
think his and Keyshawn's development this year has been unbelievable. Beginning of the year, people were looking at Keyshawn be being not like towards the top of the Naismith Player of the Year, but definitely in the running for it. And now,
He
if we
was
see more
he's on the
performances
watch list.
like this out of Cujo, he's on the watch list.
Cujo
But
not
if we
being on
see
the
even
watch
more,
list was shocking.
yeah, I think now though with him getting more and more minutes, getting that starting, and you see more performances like we did against Kansas, like we did against UCF, he'll absolutely
The
us
thing that was
on watch
probably
list.
keeping Cujo off the list was probably singularly the fact that he's been the sixth man. Because
Oh,
giving the Naismith or the Wooden to a guy who doesn't even start, just if you look at that, if you saw that in a history book, you would think it was asinine.
oh yeah.
Um, so the,
I
the
mean,
the fact alone that he got moved into the starting lineup very well might be enough to shift that narrative.
right.
Um,
I mean, he's averaging 17 points a game right now. How much of that is because he
and
hasn't
that's
been
an even
starting?
higher number in conference play. I believe his only showing in conference play that was below 20 did he scored over 20 against UCF, did he not?
He
Because I
scored
see
19 against
he
UCF,
scored 19 against
18
UCF.
against West Virginia.
Yeah, he still put up 18 against West Virginia when he was only able to make 1 3. The dude can just flat
Yeah,
out score. It is
I
remarkable.
know.
And he
Yeah,
can
he kind
score
of
and
touched on it in Ryan. Go ahead.
uh,
He kind of touched.
go ahead.
He kind of touched on it in Ryan Hammer's video, but he he said he can literally score from on the court, which I don't think is inaccurate at all. There are plenty of players who would shoot any shot they can. Curtis Jones might be the only one I would trust to shoot anywhere on the court.
Yeah. The only, I mean, I don't know if I'd be putting Cujo in the post consistently because he'd get sized up. But any jump shot anywhere on the court, I'm trusting Curtis Jones. If we need a half quarter to win a game, give it to Cujo. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Milan in clutch moments too. For whatever reason, he's just more likely to. Milan's more likely to make a Dirk fade when he's under intense pressure. I don't understand how that works, um, but it just kind of is what it is. Um, but it does not matter the situation. Nothing seems to phase Cujo. He scores like it is nothing. Um, the floater, step back jumper, uh, corner three, pop it up from the logo. I mean, we all remember the game against the team out east where he pulled it up from
Mhm.
the number 22 near the mid court line, and he drained it.
That
Um,
dirt spot on the floor.
yeah, that stain. Um, that stain that's in the shape of a 22. Um, but I mean, beyond Curtis Jones, we got to talk Joshua Jefferson. That game against UCF, the
Oh,
man does it all. He was hitting
yeah.
threes too, which he doesn't usually do.
I mean, yeah.
Um,
I still remember what game was it in Maui where he hit like four in a row and it was just, oh my God, look at him. It
I think
turns
that was
out,
against Colorado.
okay, maybe he's just automatic. Colorado,
Um,
okay.
I believe that was against Colorado. I mean, we did score 99 points in that game. So that would be the kind of thing that would help contribute to a high point total like that, just like it did against UCF. Um, but yeah, that was a career high for Jefferson, and well, if 30 points isn't your career high, like if you're scoring 30 points and that's not your career high, you have got to be one heck of an elite player. Because 30 points
Absolutely.
is nuts. Um, 7 boards, forced 4 steals. Um, Nothing to complain about there. He still distributes the ball well from the 4 spot. But UCF had absolutely no answers for guarding him. They left him open a lot, all over the floor. Not even just outside the arc where he doesn't even shoot 30%. He's what, like 26, 27% from 3 or something like that after the UCF game. It's somewhere in that neighborhood. I might be 1 or 2 percentage points off. So I can understand leaving him unguarded out on the perimeter. But to leave him unguarded in the post, to leave a 4-man unguarded in the post that can consistently score high numbers, I don't know what UCF was thinking.
Yeah. I mean, we saw him move like a guard against UCF. It almost looked like he was playing pickup ball against no one. He was just
I don't know
making
if
it
it's
easy out there
necessarily
for
so
him.
much that he's moving like a guard, so much that UCF just wasn't moving. Again, UCF played
Yeah, that
nothing
could be
resembling any defense I've ever seen. Because watching some of the clips from that game, I'm trying to figure out what defensive scheme they were trying to run. I can't figure it out. It looks totally aimless. It looks totally random.
I think they're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I would imagine. I didn't look at the press conference after the game. I would really hope, though, that there was some kind of an exchange. And if there wasn't, there probably should have been. So, some reporters got to ask him, what do you do about the defense there? And the UCF coach has got to go, what's defense?
Yeah,
Because they
just
looked like a
pray.
they looked like a bunch of it looked kind of like a sixth grade basketball club where they just kind of all chase the ball down, but there isn't really any rhyme or reason to anything.
Yeah,
Because I've seen more
yeah, no,
sophisticated
it is.
defenses in middle school. Say when I like it didn't even resemble a basic man to man defense, but it wasn't any kind of zone that I've
If
ever
it
seen
was
either.
badly,
Like I didn't know what to make of it. Um, but it didn't stop us from capitalizing on it because it didn't. Regardless of how confusing it was, the lanes to get to the hoop were so absurdly wide open that you would think that it was an airport tarmac and not a driving lane in a basketball game. Because
mhm.
driving lanes
I
in
think
a
that's
basketball
kind of.
game do not typically get that wide.
I think it's kind of the moral this year for TJ. 'Cause, for up to this point, TJ's teams have been defense, 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 and now we're getting this offensive surge this year. I mean, that's going to be what takes us to the Final Four. Is being able
Very
to
well
do
could be.
both.
Make sure you knock on wood after saying that. Um, I see some kind of cabinet or something behind you. Um, but
Yeah, I got it on my desk.
good, good. Problem solved. Um, but I talked about it in the opening monologue here. This is a team that is poised for greatness. I'm not going to say that they're going to get there. We all know how March Madness works. Chaotic things happen, upsets happen. And I've seen Iowa State lose in
Mhm.
upsets in March Madness before. I distinctly remember back when I was in middle school that loss to a UAB when we were a 3 seed. Um, last year we were a 2 seed and failed to make the Elite Eight where we were projected to go. We should not have lost to Illinois. We should have played better in that game. Now the way that game went down, obviously Illinois deserved to win it, but we should have been playing better, knowing that what we're capable of last year, and considering how much more we're capable of this year. I fully expect to run the table in Kansas City for the Big 12 tournament and to make a deep run in March. How deep that's going to be, I don't know. That's what the expectation is, but I'm still not saying that it is going to happen.
no, not at all. Or it's not guaranteed, obviously, like you said. March, nothing's guaranteed. But this team, be one of the best teams I've seen in Ames.
This is likely the first Iowa State team ever to get a one seed in March Madness.
Yeah.
And if we keep playing like we did against UCF, we won't score as many points because everybody else is going to play defense better than UCF did. But
Mhm.
we can still fly high even without Milan Momcilovic. Obviously, it's still nice to have him because of how well he is at hitting clutch shots. That Dirk fade is automatic for him. But this is a team that I feel like Iowa State has can put more trust in this team than they have any team since Pfizer and Tinsley had their Elite Eight run. Which
Yeah.
that's
Easily.
25 years ago.
Yeah.
We're talking about a team
99,
that's
2000.
yeah, we're talking about a team that should be truly historic for Iowa State. Because we have never had a team that really could contend. To even if we were to get to the Final Four, a team that could contend to win games, even at that point. I don't think we've ever had a team that, had they gotten to the Final Four, would have won there, would have even made it to the title game. I don't think Tinsley and Pfizer's team would have won in the Final Four. I think they would have lost in the semifinals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
I think that game against Auburn and Maui where we lose on the last second shot shows everything this team can be. Right? Auburn has been the clear runaway number one team in the nation, and he
for weeks now.
could have very easily won that game. We were up however many.
Yeah, I
And
think
so I think
I would
we can
argue too. Auburn definitely
be
does look
ready.
like the number one in the nation right now. Yeah, for sure. Especially since Tennessee finally took a loss, and there was finally grounds to penalize Tennessee, because when Tennessee was undefeated, you couldn't really rationalize putting Auburn at number one over top of them. Whereas now it's fairly easy to do that, and Auburn is still looking like an absolute menace even without Janai Broom. And I would expect that Broom is back before too long. That Auburn team is going to be dangerous in March, and I will probably be holding them to even higher expectations than I hold Iowa State to right now. But they're up there. It's that's among those teams. Us, Auburn, Duke. Duke is a team that, at their best, they can perform really, really well. And if they are peaking in March, they will be a title contender. They very well, if they're peaking in March, they very well might be the favorite. So that's another team that we're going to have to look at potentially having to go through. Cooper Flagg's a tough guy to deal with. The guy can put up 40 points in a game if you let him.
Yeah.
But
As he did against Notre Dame.
Yep. But we might be getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here. We still got, 2/3 of the conference slate ahead of us, plus the tournament in Kansas City. Additionally here, Demarion Watson. Demarion Watson finally getting some minutes.
I mean, we can see, last year against Oklahoma, he had, I think it was a 13-point game. Definitely carried us through that game.
This year he
You
steps
see
off the
11
bench,
from him.
comes in for 11, finally gets some significant minutes, immediately scores double digits, was 2 boards shy of a double-double. And this is a guy that doesn't typically play. If he's coming off the bench and playing like that, you gotta think he'd be starting in a lot of places.
Oh, absolutely.
And that tells you how deep our
He's
roster is,
fun.
too. Our roster is insanely deep. Noyes Indrusitis would be getting playing time at a lot of places. JT Rock would be getting... I'm surprised JT Rock is not getting playing time now. I get it. We are super deep in the front court. with Deshaun, with JJ, and with Chatfield. Um, so to rotate four guys in the front court would be a lot because then you'd be killing anybody's momentum. Um, but the amount of depth, the amount of talent that we have, the next man up mentality is there. They are ready to step up, and that's what we saw. The one bad game that we had against West Virginia, that was on two practices without Milan. So we didn't really have time to change game plan going into that. Now we have, and it got reflected in that UCF game where the offense was the question mark after the West Virginia game, and we proceeded to beat the brakes off of UCF. Demarion Watson steps in, the guy that's essentially replacing Milan's name on the roster, and scores about as many points as Milan usually does while getting more rebounds.
Because Demarion Watson's length makes him just able to play anywhere on the court. We saw him get a chase down block against Kansas. We see last year he had maybe one of the best blocks I've seen on a 3-point shot. And
the dude's got a 7-foot wingspan.
Shoot it from the outside arc. Yeah.
Dude's got a 7-foot wingspan. It's such an advantage on defense because shooting over top of him is a problem. Trying to inbound when he's guarding the inbound is a nightmare. And he can interfere with passing lanes all the live long day. Demarion Watson is, he's a menace on defense. And because there isn't that much film on him right now, I think that was partly what contributed to UCF struggling against him so much. They had no answers for his athleticism and his wingspan because he's quick too. So he can cover a very wide area very efficiently.
Yeah, his wingspan makes it cover the entire court. He can do any. I think he could probably do pretty well anywhere on offense.
Yeah.
Even when Milan comes back, I think it'd be great to see him in the lineup.
Yep. It was nice to see a good day from. It was nice to see a good day from Nate Heisey too. He finally got some scoring in Big 12 play. He'd been dry to start out. Hopefully, this is a sign of good things to come. But Heisey had 9 points on his own. Prior to that, I believe he only had one made bucket in Big 12 play. So that's a step in the right direction for Nate Heisey. Be moving tomorrow. The team's already down there. Tempe, Arizona. They will be playing the Arizona State Sun Devils tomorrow at 1 p.m. on ESPN+. The reign of terror is not over yet. Hopefully it will be sooner rather than later. But we know it'll be done by next season because TNT will be taking over the ESPN Plus games. But until that point, ESPN Plus is still, killing
settles and King
everything.
McClure.
Yep. And more bad commentary. Yeah. Arizona State, 1 p.m. ESPN Plus. Arizona State just came off an upset win over West Virginia. I would absolutely love to catch Arizona State in a hangover game so that we can beat them as badly as we beat UCF. Arizona State is a better team than UCF is. Not by much, but they are. Now, you could play the transitive property game and say that they're better than us because they beat West Virginia, who beat us. But we all know that the transitive property only is a meme. So, the game against Arizona State, in theory, should be more of a warm-up game for Monday's contest. And Monday's contest is what we all should be at least a little bit worried about. In Tucson, we play Arizona. Um, Arizona started Big 12 playoff hot. They have picked up a loss, just like we did. It was on the same day. They actually got the brakes beat off of them by Texas Tech in their home arena. Um, but Arizona is kind of that team in the Big 12 where it's hard to tell what to make of them right now because they did not look good in the non con. They took a lot of losses. They have like, what, 5 or 6 losses as a team? It's not good. They're a long shot from being ranked. But with how hot they started off in Big 12 play, now granted, they did have a weaker Big 12 schedule to start. But it's also Arizona. They have a solid history in basketball. Now, granted, that solid history is in the Pac-12, so there's an asterisk that goes with it. They're kind of notorious for struggling in March Madness when they get to tougher competition. So we'll see how they end up doing once they get to the harder parts of their Big 12 schedule, which includes us. But you know they're going to bring a tough environment down in Tucson. And if there's anything that was our Achilles heel in West Virginia, it was a tough environment. I think honestly the West Virginia game plan off the court is going to be for like the athletics department, rally the fans up, get solid attendance. I don't know if that game is sold out yet, but if not, I would imagine it will be before Monday night. They're going to want that crowd loud and rowdy and disrupt our communication just like West Virginia did, because that was a very large part of what led West Virginia to getting a win against us.
Mm-hmm.
Any other takes on that Arizona game real quick?
I think you hit the nail on the head with all of it. Arizona, like you said, has a great history. Yes, it's in the Pac-12, but it's a great history. Like, and I think all of our away games we're gonna have for the rest of the year are gonna be tough. They're gonna bring a good crowd. Like I said, Arizona, Allen Fieldhouse. Enough said. UCF always has a great
As goes the
environment
way of
for
the Big
Stanford
12.
Kidda Center.
Yep,
Yeah.
that is the way of the Big 12. Yeah, even schools that are not known for basketball in even the remotest sense, like UCF, they still brought a great environment against us last year.
Mhm.
Yeah, at a Addition Financial Arena, which is not an arena that people tune into broadcasts at very often. I think I tune into broadcasts at that arena for pro volleyball more than I do for college basketball. Um, Basically, whenever the Supernovas play there. But Big 12 road tests are tough. Big 12 road tests against good teams, you have to be elite to win. Got to be elite to win. But we are an elite team, so I think we can win. But it's not a game I'd bet on. That's for sure. I wouldn't bet money line anyway. I might bet spread on whoever the dog is, but I wouldn't touch money line on that with a 10-foot pole. Let's move on to women's ball here. Got a couple games to talk about here from the last week. Sunday, I believe it was. The women were also in Morgantown at 20th ranked West Virginia and lost by 14, 82-68. No Emily Ryan in this game due to illness, which kind of doomed us from the start because it means our ball handling was going to go down the tank and we weren't going to have anywhere as good a distribution. Don't get me wrong. Ariana Jackson is good. Reagan Wilson did a good job taking point in that game, but we needed Emily Ryan. We needed the leadership, and it was lacking in that game. Things looked a little bit discombobulated at times. And I think the biggest evidence of that, we had 25 turnovers. And West Virginia's points off turnovers, they had 26 points off turnovers, which is nearly double their margin of victory. So if you limit that, it automatically becomes a closer game. Um, and it we look discombobulated. Um, it we don't have a ton of depth on the women's team. Um, Reagan Wilson running the point, the inexperience at the collegiate level showed. Um, that's where all those turnovers came from. Um, Getting more minutes in other games would have helped, but again, you're not gonna necessarily plan on, oh, against this opponent, this player is gonna have this illness. That would be a ridiculous thing to plan for. So going into that, you know, having a game plan where Reagan Wilson was going to be running the point was not something that the team was planning on at all, and it sent the ladies into a state of disarray in Morgantown. Um, Beyond that, Audie Crooks didn't have her best day. She still shot 40% from the field, which for some players is a lot. For Audie, it is not. That is a struggle for Audie. Um, not a good day in Morgantown. You got anything you want to add to that?
Not really. I don't think. I'm not. I didn't. I wasn't going into that game expecting a win. I certainly was not expecting a 14-point loss, but I wasn't expecting a win. I think our first quarter was horrendous. We get outscored 30-15. But outside of that, we don't have an awful game. But like you said, the turnovers, we got to clean that up. Reagan, we'd love to see more out of our younger guards with AJ and Reagan Wilson. I We didn't play an awful game. I think this women's team still has a ton of potential this year. If you just look at it at face value, we haven't really lost any games that we should have. Maybe that Oklahoma State game,
We should
but
have beat
Oklahoma
Oklahoma
State's a
State.
lot better.
They're
Yeah, we
better.
should have,
They're
but
better
they're
than
also a
we.
lot
They're
better.
better than people thought they were going to be. But I still think we should have won that game. Again, we started this year as the sixth ranked team.
Yeah,
We do not look the part of that one bit. Um, the lack of experience, the inconsistency has been kind of dreadful for the Twister sisters this year. Um,
we haven't. I don't think we've seen nearly the production what we expected. I mean, Audie, of course, has been great. Addie Brown has been pretty solid. Sydney Harris has shown to be an absolute steal out of the portal. Kelsey's had a up year, or Kelsey's been better this year than she was last year. Emily's obviously Emily Ryan, but outside of that, we haven't had really any production. Elisa
no,
Williams
we
hasn't done much. Eiley Tanky isn't giving us as much as I thought she was going to.
Lily Hansford,
Of
who
course, they're
was the
also
number one
down
shooter
three.
in the Pac-12 last year, has been nowhere to be found in the scoring column. There's a lot of high expectations based on the transfers that we brought in. Kenzie Hare being injured, that's not helping at all. Depth is already a problem right now, and that really, really hurt it. Um, yeah, really, really put us in a tough situation there. Um, but yeah, the inconsistency game to game shows because Wednesday night against BYU, we looked like a totally different team. We lit it up. They won by 23, 82-59. Yeah, we started the game slow. BYU was winning after the first quarter like 18-12. We didn't play particularly good in the first half, but we shot 3-pointers well in this game for the first time in a while. We bounced back well. The offense looked a lot cleaner. Now, BYU was playing about as good defense on the women's side of the ball as UCF was on the men's side of the ball, if that tells you anything. Again, like BYU looked discombobulated. Didn't look like they knew where they were half the time. But from three, we hit 45% against BYU. Sydney Harris dropped two. Kelsey Jones dropped two. The players that you expect to score scored. Audie Crooks and Addie Brown. They both scored over 20 points in that game. Um, and after weathering the initial BYU storm, we go on that 13-2 run, and from there it's all Iowa State.
Mhm.
Viewers occupied for a second.
Yeah, against BYU, we, like I said, looked phenomenal. We touched on the defense where they had four players, or yeah, four players with four fouls, two of them with three. They just could not guard us worth a lick of anything. We saw Sydney Harris back in her normal form, 3 for 3 from the arc. Off the bench, we didn't have a crazy night. Kelsey looked okay. Kelsey had 6. She looked pretty solid. I mean, we had a phenomenal night against BYU. Great comeback after that West Virginia game.
There we go. Looks like I have power back to my equipment. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
All right, perfect. Um, yeah, looks like everything's working better now. I think I accidentally kicked the switch on my power strip, and it killed
Oh,
my monitor and my camera and that jazz. So, or maybe it wasn't my camera. No, my camera's plugged into my laptop. That should have still had power. I think it might have just been my monitor, but that threw me off. So, but we're good. We're back up and running. No issues here. Um, at least not anymore. Um, yeah. So now the question for the Twister sisters, after finding our offense again, is do we not lose sight of that when we play UCF, which night is that? I don't have that in the notes here.
believe that's tomorrow night,
Okay. Um,
Saturday.
so yeah, it would be definitely nice to get a win there. Um, the game looks like it's at home. Um, but then we have a very difficult road test on Thursday of next week when they have to go to Bramlage Coliseum and play K State, who is ranked 10th in the country right now, and I believe only has one loss. That is not an easy team to play. At least the environment won't be particularly tough because K State basketball attendance for men's or women's is horrid. But barring some kind of upset, uh, it's not going to be a good. I don't think that's going to end up being a good appearance for the Cyclones, unless it just becomes another Audie Crooks legacy game where she just becomes unguardable. If that happens, then we're in a good spot. But if it does not happen, we very well may be in trouble. So, um, but as for UCF doesn't exactly field the best women's basketball teams either. I would imagine they got to be better than their men's team, though, the way we just beat the tar out of the men's team. Um, but that with that game being at Hilton Coliseum, I still like our chances to win that one. Um, so I'm pulling for a win there. Um, but as for K State, we are going to need a wish and a prayer to compete well in that game. And then for our final segment here today, wrestling. Tonight is Beauty and the Beast. So they will be doing a joint event with gymnastics. We generally don't do gymnastics coverage here because I don't understand gymnastics to save my life. Um, I know that gymnasts can do things that I am not capable of doing. They are much more agile than me, and everything they do looks pretty impressive. But in terms of like comparing teams, I don't get it. I don't get how the judging works. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm just like they did a cool flip on the bars and then they landed. I would have fallen and broken multiple bones.
And in my books.
Yep. Yep. That's me. Be like I'd be like, no, if I tried to jump up on a balance beam or something like that, I'd be like, I'm a bit too heavy for this. And if I fall on that bar while straddling it, that's gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
That'd be a pretty serious problem. Now, sports that I do know a little bit more about, wrestling. 13th ranked Cyclones will be back on the mat tonight against the 22nd ranked Oklahoma Sooners. That'll also be at Hilton Coliseum for, yeah, as I mentioned, Beauty and the Beast. Oklahoma is currently 6-2, and they are 2-2 in Big 12 play. Iowa State has yet to lose a Big 12 duel, and it looks like we're going to be a little bit more healthy on the mat this time than we have been. But there are still going to be some spots where we are struggling with injuries. Those upper weights are going to be a problem. We're not going to be seeing Christian Carroll or Younger Bastida due to injuries that were recently suffered. But at 125, we are going to be getting Kyson Terrakina, who we didn't see much of early on in the season. Ethan Perryman is also listed as a potential starter. I think it's going to be pretty likely that we see Terrakina for this one, because I don't see Perryman beating Antonio Lorenzo, but I think Kyson Terrakina definitely can. At 133, Oklahoma is going to be sending out 22nd ranked Cleveland Belton. He's 9-3 on the season. I wish I had their opponent schedules in front of me so I can see who they won and lost to. But I don't, unfortunately. But Evan Frost will likely be wrestling for us, and he's the 5th ranked wrestler in the country. He's 10-2. He's darn good at what he does. The alternative is Osmani Diversant, who's 9-4. But again, if you're looking to pair it up to try to get the win here, knowing who Oklahoma's going to send out, you send out Evan Frost, and you're looking likely at getting the team points there. 141, which is a little bit more interesting, because we know what Anthony Echemendia can do. He's been a top competitor, but he has not gotten a whole lot of bouts in this year. Some of that's been due to health, some of it not. Not all of the details. I shouldn't say some of it not, some of it all. Not all of the details are publicly known, is what I should say. But Jacob Frost, who was not even a starter last year at 141, is currently sitting at 20-4 on the season. So he's gotten a lot of experience under his belt this year, and he's at 13th ranked wrestler in the country. Whoever ends up wrestling for Iowa State tonight, I think likely ends up winning against 19th ranked Moshe Schwartz from Oklahoma. So even though Echemendia isn't ranked, we have an idea kind of where he would be if he was. If he was listed as the starter, because non-starters don't get listed as ranked. But I like the chances of either one of them beating Schwartz. 149 very well might be the marquee matchup of the night, with 11th ranked Paniro Johnson. It's either him or Kane Nakgaboren. Kane Nakgaboren looks better this year than this is his freshman year. Never mind. I'm thinking of Tate Nakgaboren. But Kane Nakgaboren at 14-5 is no slouch either. Oklahoma will be starting Willie McDougald, who is 13th ranked. I don't know if I like Kane's chances to win this one if he wrestles. Um, and I don't know if Dresser's going to wrestle Pinheiro for this one or not. He seems to like going back and forth between Pinheiro and Kane. Um, if Pinheiro wrestles, I think this is probably the marquee matchup of the night. Um, and I don't know who wins it. They're very close in the rankings, based on wrestling style. Um, I would imagine there being a lot of being kind of low scoring, a lot of time spent in neutral. Um, then we move on 157. Oklahoma doesn't have anybody starting while we've got 12th ranked Cody Chittum. 165. Tate Piccolo is not having the best year ever for Oklahoma right now. He's only ranked 30th. But he has the potential to be ranked much higher. And we've got Aiden Riggins, who's 8-11, so I don't expect to win that weight class. Not without some kind of an upset. At 174, MJ Gaitan's having a disappointing season. Expectations were high from him, but he's sitting at 9-5. He's 23rd ranked. And he's got to wrestle against 8-2 Gavin Sachs, who's number 8 in the country. And Sachs is not a guy that I would want to be wrestling against right now. So I think that's another one that goes to Oklahoma. At 84, I like this matchup here. We got Evan Bachman and DJ Parker. Bachman is number 12 in the country. Remember, he transferred in from Utah Valley. He's developed well under Dresser since transferring. He was already a ranked wrestler at Utah Valley. And DJ Parker is sitting at 13-4. He's got a few more bouts this year than Bachman does, but not a lot. Shouldn't make too big of a difference there, but I think Bachman's skill set is considerably wider than Parker's is. So barring some kind of catastrophic mistake from Bachman, I think that's another one that Iowa State wins. I really like Iowa State's chances to win this duel tonight. I think a lot of these matchups play out in our favor. Now at 197, this one's, I don't know what to make of this one. We are not getting a single ranked wrestler in this bout, because Iowa State could start 3 different guys here. If I was going to pick one of them, I'd probably go with Sawyer Bartelt, but I don't really know who it's going to be at all. I don't know what Dresser's thinking about this one. I don't have any inside information. And then whoever we send out there will be wrestling against Bradley Hill, who has a losing record. So that one, it shouldn't be the definitive match of the night, that's for sure. And then of course, at heavyweight, with Younger being injured, that makes Daniel Herrera our starter, and he is currently sitting at 23rd ranked in the country. He's 19-6. Picked up some good wins along the way, especially in some of those early tournaments. And he's going to be wrestling 26th ranked Juan Mora, who does not have anywhere near as much experience through this season anyway. He's only wrestled 12 bouts. He's 8-4. They line up very similarly in the rankings. But the question for this one is, does the extra workload that Herrera's had to take on this year fatigue him out? That's one thing that concerns me going into this one, because that can tend to be a little bit more of a problem at heavyweight than it is at some of the middleweights. I think it tends to be a bigger problem at the ends, at the lower weights, because of some really harsh cutting. Fatigue can be an issue, and then at the heavyweights, just because of body type, fatigue can set in a little bit easier. And then Sunday, for the second ever collegiate wrestling duel broadcast on ESPN, which will also be in Hilton Coliseum. The first one was in Hilton Coliseum last year against the team out east. This time around, it's us against the number 3rd ranked Oklahoma State Cowboys. That one's going to be tough. Just looking at these matchups here, trying to think what might we be able to win here. Um, 133, I like Evan Frost, assuming we wrestle him against Whitcraft. Um, Jacob Frost could potentially be an upset against Tegan Jameson, but I wouldn't count on that. Um, Paniro Johnson against Carter Young could be interesting if that ends up being the matchup. Um, I'm trying to figure out what rankings was actually used here when Iowa State reported the starting lineups here, because at 157, it's telling me 12th ranked Cody Chittum against 12th ranked Caleb Fish, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless there was a tie in whichever voting system was used. I'm guessing they use Intermat and not Flow, but I'm not entirely certain on that. So that one's probably a toss up. What else do we got here? I don't like 165 at all. I don't like 174 at all. 184 maybe could be interesting, but I still don't like Bachman's chances against Dustin Plott. Plott's a contender to take the title at 184 this year. 197 I don't like. I don't think we have anybody that's going to compete with Luke Serber. And then at heavyweight, I don't see Daniel Herrera competing with Wyatt Hendrickson either. So the only one I see for that Sunday duel against Oklahoma State that we really have a good shot at winning is probably at 133. 157 is a coin toss. Aside from that, I don't really like our chances in any other bouts. So Sunday might not be a pretty duel for us. But nonetheless, I'd love to stay optimistic and say that, maybe things will go right. Maybe the crowd will get into it. Maybe we'll get a few friendly calls, even though that friendly versus unfriendly calls tends not to be a huge factor in wrestling. It's usually pretty cut and dry. But yeah, the other big headlines here, Younger Bastida is going to be seeking a medical red shirt with him missing the rest of the season. He only wrestled 2 bouts. He had victories over Ben Cater from the team out east and Robert Platt from North Carolina. That's it. So with only 2 bouts, he very well might be able to get that medical red shirt. We'll find out. But until then, make sure you give the Cornfield Sports Pod a follow on Twitter at CSportsPod. My co-host Blake, when he's here, would be telling you to find him at BlakeAttack1846. Chase, where can they find you at?
You can find me on Twitter at Rocco ROCCO Lobster LOBSTRETER, or at my Instagram, which is just my name, CHAYSEROECKAR.
Alrighty, and of course you can find me at SFMattISU on Twitter. Tap the follow button on Spotify, plus button on Apple. Subscribe to us on YouTube, on Rumble. Make sure you hit the little bell for the notifications. If you use Amazon Castbox or Good Pods, I don't know that I've ever heard of anybody using those services, but we are available on them. And for Blake Peterson, I'm Matt Menson. This is Chase Riker.
I'm Chase Riker.
He's Chase Riker. And this has been the Cornfield Sports Pod.